2 seconds of nothing. Then a sound. Low. Dry. A rustle, somewhere close, in grass you can't see. Before I said a single fact, before I even told you what made that sound, an old reflex in you had already made a decision. Run. Then, too late. You've probably never been hunted by a snake. Whatever just woke up inside you didn't get that memo. Today you have boots, glass windows, emergency rooms, streetlights. Back then, darkness had teeth. And here's the strange part. Snakes never evolved to hunt us. They didn't have to, but they changed how we evolved anyway. For almost the entire history of our species, one bite was the end of the story. No hospital, no call for help, just you, the swamp, and something with 250 million years of practice before we ever showed up. We just walked straight into its world. Almost nobody tells you the real part of this story, though. Surviving reptiles didn't just keep us alive, it left fingerprints all over the human mind. A survival habit you're using without realizing it right now while you watch this. 3 things are coming tonight. 1 discovery that changed how scientists think about fear itself. 1 mistake our ancestors kept making that got thousands of them killed. And 1 ancient trick hiding in you right now that you've never once noticed. All 3, before this ends, tomorrow morning. You're thirsty. Your child is thirsty. There's exactly 1 place to get water. And whatever's out there already knows you're coming. No shoes yet. No worn path. Just grass taller than your knees that could be hiding anything. That walk wasn't a chore. It was a small act of courage repeated every morning, whether anyone ever called it that or not. Here's something most people never think about. For many ancient people, the deadliest trip of the day wasn't hunting. It was getting a drink. Imagine the child suddenly runs ahead, toward the water, the way kids do. Every adult freezes, nobody shouts, nobody moves. Why? Because shouting tells anything hiding out there exactly where you are. Every predator out there taught a different lesson. 1 taught you to look down, 1 taught you to fear still water, 1 taught you that standing still could be deadlier than running. Snakes lived almost everywhere except the coldest corners of the planet. Silent. Sometimes inside your own shelter, in the dark. The most personal kind of danger there was. Crocodiles didn't chase. They waited exactly where they knew you'd have to come, because everyone needs to drink eventually. No sound, no warning, just stillness, right up until it wasn't. The giant lizards were slower, but a single bite, left untreated, could finish the job over days instead of seconds. You know how you instinctively look down at where you're stepping in long grass, even on a perfectly safe lawn? Or how a parent will pull a child gently behind them without even thinking about it the second something moves nearby? Nobody taught anyone that. It's just there, an old habit nobody quite put down. Reptiles don't make any of this easy either way. No warning before the strike. They just appear. Gone. How did anyone survive long enough for any of us to be sitting here tonight? That answer begins with a question scientists never expected to ask. Something kept confusing scientists. Humans spot snakes faster than almost anything else they're shown, faster than spiders, faster than angry faces. But if that's true, why aren't we just as terrified of worms? They're shaped almost the same. Turns out, it's not really about the shape. Some research even suggests babies do something similar, looking longer at exactly the kind of shape your ancestors feared most, before anyone's had the chance to teach them anything at all. Scientists couldn't explain it. A child is playing near the edge of camp. She stops walking. Everyone else keeps moving. Then, one by one, every adult nearby realizes something. She isn't looking at any of them. She's looking past them. Nobody turns immediately. But everyone survives, because she did. Then, in 2006, a researcher at UCLA named Lynn Isbell asked a different question entirely. Not about ancient history, about eyes. Why ours work the way they do. What she found Most things knock first. Snakes pull the fire alarm. Almost everything you see gets looked at, considered, sorted. Snakes skip all of that. You might think all of this made our ancestors stronger. It didn't. So what did it make them? Better observers. The people who survived weren't always the strongest. They were the ones who noticed first. It's still debated. But enough evidence exists that many scientists take it seriously. What we do know, archaeologists have found evidence that ancient people regularly encountered dangerous reptiles, from crocodile attacks to venomous snake remains found near human sites. And in some places, what look like defensive structures near water, although researchers still debate exactly what they were protecting against. Try to imagine being the one who learned this the hard way. Someone walks down to fill a vessel, doesn't come back. Someone else goes to check. Nothing. Just disturbed mud at the waterline. And silence. Without a single word for it yet, the whole group understands this much. That place takes people. Knowing the danger was one thing. Surviving it, year after year, took 3 kinds of cleverness. All 3 are still in you, somewhere. First, they stopped doing the things that got them killed. Sleeping right on the ground stopped. Checking before sitting, before reaching anywhere they couldn't fully see, started. One warning sound, and the whole group froze or moved, instantly. This is also, weirdly, why hikers poke at bushes with a stick before walking through them. Nobody really thinks it through. The stick just goes in first. Every time. Second, fire changed everything. Not because reptiles were afraid of flames, because cold bodies hate cold nights, and a firelit camp was a miserable place for a cold-blooded animal to want to sit still in. It didn't kill every predator out there, didn't need to. It stole surprise from the darkness, eyes catching the light, movement showing up at the edge of the circle instead of out of nowhere. Imagine opening your eyes at midnight and seeing 2 glowing eyes just outside the firelight watching you back. Third, parents started teaching children before mistakes could happen. Picture a 3-year-old, a small hand reaching toward bright, patterned scales, because children always reach before they understand. Before the child even touches it, a mother grabs their wrist. That exact lesson got repeated somewhere, for thousands of generations. Nobody designed any of this. One family copied another. One child copied another. One generation copied the last. And after thousands of years, nobody even remembered where the lesson began. And what reptiles taught us went a lot further than just survival. We've talked about fear this whole time, but fear wasn't the real adaptation. Attention was. Remember Isabel's idea? It goes further than just a fast alarm. Picture it this way. Every time a snake struck and someone nearby spotted it half a second sooner than everyone else, that person tended to live a little longer. Generation after generation, the ones who saw it first kept surviving more often than the ones who didn't. Slowly, without anyone deciding it should happen, eyesight itself may have started to shift. A lot of researchers think this could be part of why our eyes face forward, good for judging distance, and why our color vision is sharp enough to catch a patterned shape in dappled light. It's still debated, but enough evidence exists that many scientists take it seriously. What's the world's most common fear? Heights? Death? Spiders? None of them. Snakes. Across many different cultures, they consistently rank among humanity's most common fears, even in countries where most people have never seen a wild one. Here's a small thing worth remembering. Kids as young as 3 react differently to a snake shape than to any other shape, before anyone's ever told them to be scared. Nobody taught them that. They just arrived knowing it. And here's what I can't stop thinking about. It's not just that we learned to fear reptiles. We learned to share that fear instantly with each other. One short, wordless sound. And everyone nearby freezes before they've had time to think about what's happening. That sound is older than language. Older than stories. Maybe older than any tool we've ever dug out of the ground. possibly one of the oldest examples of one human saving another, without a single word passing between them. This is also exactly why horror movies work on you. The director doesn't need to show the monster, just grass moving, a shadow at the edge of frame, a close-up of something scaled. The oldest part of you does the rest of the work, completely on its own, and you don't even notice it happening. You're not really reacting to a movie, you're reacting to 100,000 years of something's in the grass. The director isn't creating fear. They're borrowing yours, and you've been carrying that fear since before history started keeping notes. At some point, the animal humans feared most became the animal they carved into their temples. Painted on cave walls, woven into the first stories anyone ever told about where the world came from. Across different civilizations, serpents kept appearing again and again. In temples, in myths, in sacred stories that had no contact with each other at all. The strange part isn't really that humans feared snakes, it's that they trusted snakes enough to make them symbols of healing. Humans rarely worship something that never once frightened them. Maybe respect is what fear becomes after enough generations manage to survive it. We don't know exactly what they believed. We just know it mattered enough to carve into stone, to paint by hand, to build into the very first temples ever raised. The thing that threatened them became sacred to them, not despite the fear. Because of it. Here's what actually happened when you put the whole thing together. Our ancestors walked into a world full of animals with 250 million years of practice, and no interest at all in whether they made it through. And they survived anyway. They stopped doing the things that got them killed. Fire, sleeping off the ground, warning each other instantly. An old reflex sharpened in their eyes too. Tuned to spot danger, faster than thought ever could be. And the way knowledge moved between people changed, passed from parent to child, before the danger was ever personally met. In doing all of that, they weren't just surviving reptiles anymore. They were laying the foundation for how humans talk to each other, live together, even think. Remember how we started tonight? Before a single fact. Before I told you what made that sound, that old reflex in you had already decided. Here's the callback. The next time your skin crawls at something you haven't fully seen. The next time you check behind a curtain you already know is empty. The next time a horror movie gets you with nothing but the sound of dry grass. That's not irrational, not weakness. That's an old reflex in you, doing exactly the job it was built to do. It isn't reacting to your bathroom. It's reacting to 100,000 mornings beside rivers. The biggest mistake most of us make about our own fear is assuming it's a flaw, a glitch, a weakness to get over. The evidence says otherwise. Your fear of snakes isn't a bug. It's a feature, one that's been quietly saving lives since long before our species had a word for fear at all. That's inheritance. That crawling feeling, something scaled, low, and fast. Something you can't quite make out at the edge of your vision. Science has a name for it. It's also the exact feeling that stopped your great 10,000 times great grandmother from reaching into the grass without looking first. And because she looked, you exist. The snake never knew it was shaping a species. It wasn't trying to change us. It was just trying to eat. We were just trying to get home. Then, one final sound. The same low, dry rustle from the very first second of this video. Somewhere close. In grass you still can't see.